The eyes are always the first thing people mention. Not the height, not the skin, not even the ship half the time. It's the eyes. Too large, no white around them, no visible pupil, just black, going back further than any eye should go. Almost every serious account of this being across 70 years of testimony starts in the same place. Something looked at me and I couldn't look away. There are two explanations you already know. One, this is fabrication or a very specific kind of sleep event, and there is a real, version of that argument. A psychologist named Frederick Maelstrom proposed that the entire image is the picture stored in the mind of every human being who has ever been an infant, looking up at a caregiver's face before the vision could resolve the detail. It's not a lie. It's, in this way, a very odd memory. Two, it's a species from somewhere else studying us. Both are honest attempts at an answer. I don't think either one of this is actually the truth. There is another way of understanding this that does not begin by asking what these beings are made of. It asks something stranger. What they may be missing and what they come here to get. To explain this properly, I have to take you back to the beginning of creation itself, in the way some of the oldest spiritual systems understood it. Before there was a world like this one, there was source, pure consciousness or light, before it had been divided into the forms through which we experience it now. But for consciousness to become creation, it had to enter form. The infinite had to become finite. Something without boundary had to be held inside structures that could contain it, differentiate it, and eventually express it. And here is where the story becomes really interesting. The first forms could not hold what entered them. The light was too great for the structures that were meant to contain it, and the structures simply collapsed. Most of what they carried returned to its source, but not everything did. Something remained caught within these fragments. So creation did not continue as a perfectly ordered movement from light into form. It continued with something unresolved already inside it. Fragments of failed forms still carrying something of the original light, but no longer able to hold or express it properly. And this gives us a very different way of thinking about what we normally call darkness. Darkness, and this understanding, is not necessarily another power standing opposite the light. Sometimes it is a light caught inside a form that can no longer express what it contains. The form remains, something of the original life remains within it, but the relationship between the two has broken. And here is the detail that matters for tonight. A form in that condition cannot necessarily sustain itself in the way a complete living system can. It may still be able to interact, it may perceive, it may even appear highly intelligent, but it remains dependent upon something it cannot properly generate or integrate for itself. And one of the most powerful things human beings continually generate and direct is attention. Desire that has nowhere honest to go, fear held onto past its use, focus given repeatedly without intention behind it, the enormous amount of life we continually place into what we watch, fear, desire, and remember. If an incomplete form depends upon that kind of direct life, then suddenly the question changes. We are no longer asking only where the grays come from. We are asking whether the gray could be something much older than the form in which we encounter it now. Something that did not arrive here from another planet, but belongs to the unfinished architecture of creation itself. I think that gets us closer to understanding what a gray may be than the word alien has ever gotten us. Let us walk through what is reported one detail at a time to arrive at this different understanding of the visitors. The eyes, no pupil, nothing that has been seen, nothing that confirms it's seeing you back the way a living human eye does. If this is an incomplete form, something that can receive or carry life without being able to integrate it properly, then an eye that seems to take everything in and gives almost nothing back becomes interesting in a completely different way. It isn't a familiar exchange of looking and being looked at. It feels, in many accounts, through the gaze itself, is drawing the person in. Then the telepathy. Almost no account describes ordinary language. Communication is reported as direct, an imprint arriving without negotiation. There is no voice to locate and often no visible process of communication at all. Something simply enters awareness. If the ordinary distance between one consciousness and another is being bypassed, then perhaps the telepathy is telling us something about the nature of the phenomenon itself, rather than simply describing an advanced form of alien communication. Then the clinical, the testing, the quality checks, the procedures, something is being measured, sampled, and checked. If what is being sought is not only biological material, but access to what is alive in us, then an encounter that feels like examination becomes interesting in another way. The body may be what is being examined, but it may not be the only thing involved. Then there is the fear. I would like to be careful here because the fear is in these accounts very real, and I'm not here to explain it away. But notice what fear does. It captures attention, it narrows it, it makes the object of fear extraordinary, difficult to stop attending to. And very often the encounter does not end where the event ends. The person continues to think about it, replay it, dream about it, and search for an explanation, sometimes for years. If attention is part of what matters in these encounters for these beings, then fear may not simply be a reaction to the phenomenon. Fear may also be one of the ways our attention becomes bound to it. That does not make the fear false. Quite the opposite. Fear can be correct information, while the story we build around it, abduction, harvest, invasion, or something else entirely, may still be incomplete. So here is the actual answer to the question underneath all of this. Why do they need us at all? Because in this understanding, what matters about us may not primarily be our biology. It may be our capacity to generate and direct attention, desire, emotion, and conscious intention. We can take what is alive in us and deliberately place it somewhere. We can love something, fear something, desire something, remember something, and continue to give it life through attention long after the original moment has passed. A complete living consciousness can direct that capacity. An incomplete form may depend on it, so depend on us. And if you think about the phenomenon that way, I don't believe the gray is necessarily best understood as a visiting species. I think it may be closer to an incomplete form of consciousness that has found in the shape we now call the grace, a form the modern mind will recognize instantly and continue to feed with attention. Whitley Strieber has spent decades approaching something close to this form of complete different door. The beings he calls the visitors resist a simple category. They appear external, yet they are bound up with human consciousness in a way that makes ordinary visitation an incomplete explanation. His work repeatedly returns to the possibility that the encounter is part of a shared unfinished process rather than simply one species visiting another. I think he may be circling the same larger question from another direction. What if the important question is not simply where the visitors come from? What if it is what kind of relationship with human consciousness makes the encounter possible in the first place? I don't want to leave you with the thought, with fear, because that would be feeding the same mechanism we have spent in this conversation describing. So here's the reframe the order spiritual understanding offers, and it is a bigger one than protect yourself. Nothing in this model, not even an incomplete form, not even something still caught in the remains of a failed structure, has to be imagined as sitting completely outside the larger order of things. The original fragmentation happened within creation itself. Whatever remained unresolved did not fall outside the source from which creation came. It remained part of an order that was still becoming, still recognizing, and still capable of repair. That means an encounter does not have to be understood only as a violation arriving from somewhere outside reality. It may also be a meeting with something unfinished within reality itself. And if attention is part of this relationship, what the Greys desire, then we are not entirely passive within it. Practically, that means the moment that matters most may not be the encounter itself. It may be what you do with your attention in the hours and days around it. Fear held and turned over repeatedly keeps attention attached to the thing that produced it. Fear noticed, named, and then deliberately redirected towards something real, something you actually love, something that returns you to yourself, changes that relationship. That is not a defense technique. It is an act of sovereignty over attention. And within this order spiritual understanding, it may be closer to an act of quiet repair, not feeding confusion further, not denying what happened, and not surrendering the living part of ourselves to it indefinitely. An incomplete thing does not necessarily have to be hated. It does not have to be worshipped either. And it certainly does not have to be unlimited access to our attention, simply because we do not yet understand it. There is much more to say about why this seems to happen to some people and not to others, and about the other kinds of non-human presence that don't behave anything like this one. And this will be our next conversation. For tonight, if something has ever looked at you like that, I would not rush to reduce the experience either to an alien encounter or to something your mind has invented. You may have been standing for a moment at one of those strange meeting points where consciousness, form, and attention interact in ways we still understand very poorly. And perhaps the most important part is not deciding exactly what was looking back at you. It is understanding that your attention remains yours to direct entirely. Please leave your thoughtful comments below. We are here to explore this topic together. If you like this kind of topic and this thinking, like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.